I just got out of an abusive relationship, and I was convinced that it was love, and actually it was ironclad abuse, and I had no idea until I came up for air. Kind of my review thoughts on the end game of Granblue Fantasy Relink, and it's not going to be quite as nice and glowing as my initial review of the game. After 200 hours of locked into this just insane grind with RNG and a ton of fun and everything else, I just, my opinion on it has changed from the original review. And frankly, doing a review primarily focusing on the first 15 to 20 hours of the game where you're getting through the story is kind of irresponsible, because the majority of the gameplay really lives past that initial story. And nobody would rate a Monster Hunter game, for example, on the story that you finish. They're going to tell you about the game after you finish the story, which is basically like a glorified tutorial. As always, we'll talk about the good, the solace, and the bad, the dread, and I'll give my PSA to the other people who are still playing Granblue Fantasy Relink in the end game, and just give my honest thoughts on what is by far my most time invested multiplayer experience of 2024. I'm Solace. This is Solace and Dread. We produce analytical content as well as reaction videos primarily focused around Square Enix, Nintendo, and Capcom publications. Just so you know, we are running a poll on which characters you think were the best in the game. Please vote so we can cover the results. I really want to get a tangible number on the true meta of Granblue Fantasy Relink. I think that'd be really cool, and this would be before the new characters drop with Solace. So the good, or the solace, look, I enjoyed fighting these bosses, and what kept it interesting is seeing how you perform with the different characters and the play styles, and that's going to repeat a lot in the good, because it kind of saved the end game. A boss fight with ranged characters, for example, is completely different from how it works with melee fighters. And even the melee fighters were different depending on whether you're playing somebody like Lancelot or Charlotta or somebody like Vasaraga. It helped you overlook the fact that you were just fighting reskinned enemies over and over again, because all that the player focuses on is, okay, how is this character going to perform in this fight? The multitude of characters not only keeps the game interesting, but it allows for varied approaches to fights if you tend to struggle with some of them. Like some bosses were just straight up easier to fight with melee characters. Take it from an ex-Rackham main. Some of these bosses punished you for being far away from them, and some of these fights were obviously easier when you didn't have to get in close. And then what I might feel is probably a more controversial opinion, but I really think that the sigil system was like a stroke of genius. It allows you to completely customize how you play your character, and you know, it caters to like the min-max crowd like myself. You know, this worked far better than a traditional armor system would, like way better. If you want to like build like a tanky healer, you can do that. If you want to optimize yourself for specifically one fight that you might be struggling with, do it. Acquiring these sigils, though, is a very different conversation, and we're going to get to that. The sigils themselves, I hope more games adopt this kind of system, because it allows for just such creative freedom when you're kitting out a character. The fights themselves, they're not too challenging, with the exception of a few. There are a few that were an absolute headache. Most of them are handled just by learning positioning, really. They play it kind of like MMO boss battles. Lastly, the camaraderie was probably my personal favorite part of the experience. Not with randoms, mind you. It was playing with my friends and helping each other like grind for sigils and weapons. We were suffering together, and that is probably what made it so fun. By the way, we do this stuff live over on Twitch. Join the community over there. It's awesome. Links in the description. If you had a friend who was like a little further behind, you know, it was the perfect time to like try out a character that you'd never really played with and take them along into your missions, because then it would, you know, help seal off the amount of damage you do. Again, it's the multitude of characters that is helping to save this game. But on the subject of playing with friends, we need to move into the dread. The second worst part of this game experience, the end game experience, is the matchmaking and network issues. Holy shit. It was bad, like horrific sometimes. The glitches that I encountered because of it on like Proto Bahamut were insane. Just trying to get into a game half the time was insane. Not always. When it worked, but there were times that it was just like completely non-functioning to the point you might as well just try to, you know, rough it with bots or hope that one of your friends is on, because you're not going to play. Now, there's a million reasons people are going to give excuses to protect side games. You know, oh, they're not a massive studio like these other ones, blah, blah, blah. Get out of my face with all that. Listen, I'm just talking about this game, the bad experience it was. If you're going to release a game where you're doing tons of online matches, I would have just really enjoyed if that was ironed out before having to suffer through fighting through bosses that ended up getting broken or glitch out in the middle of the fight. The experience was just dirty ass cheeks, and there's really no getting around it. And even when you played with friends, sometimes it was still broken, like let alone with the randoms. So this is second to the most irritating thing with this gameplay experience in the end game, and that was the drop rates. The drop rates for weapons, the best sigils, and just having to deal with this little potato bitch. All right. I have amazing builds. I was not lucky right away, and I play on PS5, so you know I'm not cheating. I had to go through a sea of hell to get my War Elemental sigil, and let's not even talk about the supplemental damage 5s. I have them, but like I've never even seen a 5+. I've only seen them on like Reddit. I've never actually seen it in the wild. I don't even think that it exists at this point. I think that it's just this giant conspiracy, and people are just making fun of me. Not to mention, man, why did they do this? When you're running Trans Marvels and praying to RNGesus that he blesses you with love with some hyper specific sigil that you want, that stupid fucking parrot sitting on Sierra's shoulder mocking you every time you get trash, and it's like, wonderful. And I hear that it's even worse in the Japanese version of the audio. So I've never hated an NPC quite as much as I've hated this little potato and her fucking bird. And then the drop rates on Proto Bahamut for your Terminus weapon, that was ass. I want to be very clear. I have never grinded a single boss and killed them so many times in my entire life. Couple that with like connection issues. If I did have to play with randoms, it was just such a bitch. I spent days trying to clear this, and I ended up switching mains because I couldn't get Rackham's gun, which, by the way, best decision that I ever made in the game, because I ended up learning Cagliostro, and I swear to God, she is the best character in that whole ass game, free. Anyway, I think at some point trying to get this weapon from Proto Bahamut, or maybe even it was the Silver Centrum, because the parts that you need to upgrade your guns are just ridiculous too. At some point, I would have paid real life money to get what I needed. And I had sunk so much time in that I felt like I couldn't pull out. That's called the sunk cost fallacy. And that's how they get you to keep going. It's an abusive relationship. And they need more than one boss in this DLC drop to breathe more life into this game, because I'm going to end up picking this game up, beat Lucilius, and put it down and never touch it again. Straight up. I don't care about them other characters. Cagliostro is life. So what do I care? I'm gonna kill this boss, be like, oh neat, that was cool, and then that was it. I'll never walk back to it again. And the last segment of this video is all of the things that I need people to know. If you are playing the end game for Granblue Fantasy Relink, I got shit to say to you, okay? This is a direct complaint to the randoms I'm playing with in matchmaking, and yes, this is with malice in my heart, mostly. Number one, if you are not good at the game, don't wear glass cannon, because all you're gonna do is annoy everybody that you're with. You're not going to get MVP when you're crumpled up on the floor in a heap of eviscerated flesh. Dog. All right. Second, if you are not great at the fights in general and you have low HP, even if you're not rocking glass cannon, use some defensive sigils. Bring potion hoarder so you have more like heals and revives. What are you doing, bro? Number 3, look, you see this? You see what this is? You see it? You see that? That is an L1 button. You know what that does? It makes you block attacks. Hit that shit. Tap it. You can block shit from Proto Bahamut. It is way underutilized. Stop trying to dodge everything and face tanking. You can block way better than you can dodge. It is so much more forgiving, even if you don't have any points applied into improved guard. And then 4, if you're dead because you didn't listen to the first 3 things I just said, mash. Bruh, mash buttons. Don't just sit there. If you are dead, don't just sit there for the revive timer to come back. It goes faster if you mash buttons, and it takes less time. That way the critical bar, which is what everybody shares, runs out a lot slower. You save critical bar for other people in case they make a mistake. I mean, look, I'm putting it on screen. Look at this ass clown who almost cost us a Bahamut Reversa run. He was the boss. I had to actually outpace him in his incompetency. Do you even care? Do you even care? Number 5. This is a little more specific, but on Proto Bahamut, do the SBA burst in pairs. Don't go all at once, you fucking Muppets. Doing it in pairs keeps him in stun longer. And when you're done, you're probably ready to go into link time so you can kill that bastard dragon in a single rotation if you're any good. It's really frustrating when we go into these fights with randoms and they break this clearly established but unspoken rule. Well, here I am. I'm speaking it. Come on. Don't be that person. Everybody knows this. Do it in pairs. Number 6, Narmaya mains. Stop dying because you're trying to pump out DPS. Nobody is impressed when you're fucking dead. Some people are just so hell-bent on getting that little MVP medal, and it doesn't mean anything. You're also not going to get it most of the time anyway if you're in the same party as an Eugen, a Cagliostro, or a Fairy. So just stop. Number 7 or number 6, whatever, man. Rackham mains. Stop. Play somebody else. The best way to play him is aerial shotgun, and it is horrible. Rackhams have so much range that most of them never learn how to deal with the bosses. Rackhams tend to end up dead in a fucking corner across the map from everybody else. Everybody hates us. As soon as they see a Rackham in the party, it's a fucking clown. It's with good reason. We're like the plain skins in Fortnite, where you see them and just everybody knows that they're going to be a problem. Zeta mains, you're creeping up. You're starting to become the new Rackham. We see you. You're not safe nearly as much as you think you are. All in all, I needed to get this off my chest. I loved playing this, but only because I loved playing with my friends. I could not imagine wanting to grind this game if I didn't have people to talk to and have that camaraderie with. I loved the ride to the end and fighting these bosses, even though they were reskins. Like, I liked the progress up to that point, but from there, it turned into like a mindless slog, unlike anything that I've experienced in the past decade. And I'm hesitant to pick up the game again on the DLC release if it's just going to be more grind for some new resource so you can do a little bit more damage. If you enjoyed these kinds of videos, please consider subscribing and hit the like button. It really helps us out. Just a reminder that there is that poll, and I will share the results of that poll very soon. So thank you for watching. We'll see you soon, and long live the Turtle Kingdom.